jazz up Nan's old plates for presents to the family. These are the plates that I want to embellish. The plates I remember eating Christmas dinner off nearly 30 years ago. They hold memories, but they're not quite nice enough to put on the wall as ornaments. Neither do I want to use them as daily cutlery, and I'm not sure if we even have a whole set left for future family dinners. So I want to paint on them so the family can put them on their wall. Home sweet home. Home sweet home is a common phrase expressing joy, comfort and contentment when returning home. You often see the phrase printed on doormats and pillows, and I'm going to paint it on Nan's old plates. It's also got some ace letters, which work really well for bubble writing, which is a total win. So I'm using Procreate to create this rough. For me, this is the most fluid way to create designs. So I take a photo of the plate using my iPad. I then measure the plate 27 by 27. I then open a file 27 by 27 using the software I want to use, in this case Procreate. I bring in a photograph of the plate. I now know this plate is 27 by 27. And copy my design onto the plate and place the design where I think it looks best. I now have an image of the design on the plate, the correct size. And when I print it out, I can use this to transfer the image onto the plate. This is the tricky part of making art, so we can all spend the morning redrawing the design onto the plate, but it's just not time efficient. So here I'm going to use a pounce and chalk to transfer the image onto the plate. It's a technique I've seen used by sign writers. You pierce the holes in the paper where you want the chalk to appear, and you use the chalk dots as a guide to where to paint. Let's see. That did not work. Well, that was a total fail. So it's kind of obvious. Chalk doesn't stick to china. This technique does work on other materials, such as wood and paper. So this technique I use a lot, and it works well on uneven surfaces. I'm actually not sure why I didn't use it first time. I simply get a printout of the design and cut it out, and place the design where I want it placed, and draw around the design. This will give me a good enough idea of the design, and I can fill in the middle bits. I'm using a special pencil for this, which is often used by sign writers. It's called aquarellable, and it can be drawn on all sorts of materials, such as glass, plastic and metal. But the point of this pencil is that it wipes off easily, which is useful when you make mistakes and wiping it off at the end. So I started using one-shot paints years ago. Someone asked me to paint a motorcycle petrol tank. These enamel paints are suitable for that, as they can take high heats and are incredibly durable. And I got really into using the paints. They're lovely to paint with and leave a super smooth surface. I have a number of different colours, but for this project I want to use pastel colours. One Shot have a nice range of pastel colours, with my favourite being salmon pink and robin egg blue. The key to using one-shot enamel is to use the hardener. It's expensive, but speeds up the process of drying time, and in my personal opinion makes the finish a little bit shinier. And when the enamel gets too sticky, I have found adding a drop of white spirit helps loosen up the enamel and doesn't affect the outcome. And also, use white spirit to clean up. One Shot do provide a cleaning fluid, but it's super expensive, and white spirit is 1/4 of the price. I leave the base layers to dry overnight. Honestly, there's no point in rushing this part of the process. I have in the past, and it's ended in tears. The one thing I hate about One Shot is the smell. I'm wearing a mask, but honestly I could do without it. It gets on your clothes, and it just can't be good for you in general. I only use this enamel for projects that need it. Now to paint the black outline. This is the most difficult part of the process, and I'm using a sign painting brush. You can use any brush that you feel comfortable using. That's the thing, brushes are very personal to your hand movement and how much confidence you have with your first line. Mistakes are made, but most mistakes can be resolved with a little bit of white spirit and cloth. It just comes down to practice. I haven't painted lines like this for a while. The first line I drew in this session was super sketchy, but by the end I got the rhythm going and it was alright. However, saying this, I am wondering if using an enamel pen wouldn't be easier for this part of the process. Something to research and think about, because I'm pleased with the outcome, but it was a challenge and there might be an easier way of getting the same result. So these 4 plates are finished and I'll ship them to various members of the family now. I'm pleased with this project and I feel I could explore the project a little further. I think I'll visit some second-hand shops and get some more old plates and bring them back to life. So I visited some charity shops and I was delighted with what I found. The plates I found at the charity shop were more elaborate than my family plates, but they still felt special. All the plates I have chosen have a sentimental feel to them. Once they were held within a collection that appeared on someone's wall. Now they find themselves at a charity shop, looking for a new home for a few quid. They're mine. I found myself with 11 old plates, all with various pictures and embellishments on them. I soon realised the same size image wasn't just going to appear on every single plate, and I was going to need to handle every single plate with the care and attention that it deserved, and react to the original image, bringing out the old village church and the cart and horses. It was at this moment I realised the project had legs, and I could turn this into something nice. So like before, I go through each part of the process, sizing the image up, cutting out the rough, and drawing a rough design onto the plate, and then painting the plates with the one-shot enamel paints I used on my family plates. I'm using a different selection of colours, going a bit brighter than before. What's interesting about this project, you are giving these plates a new lease of life. I really want to make these plates valued again, and still keep a bit of the wholesome imagery of the past. It's a visual fusion of new and old ideas, I guess. I was thinking the idea maybe wouldn't work on charity plates, as they don't hold personal memories, but somehow they feel more special. As I paint these plates, I wonder who owned them. As I said previously, I think I'm going to try out a new technique for how I create the black line. I found these enamel pens at the art shop and one very interesting pen, which I can only describe as a solvent oil-based pen, which dries really hard. Anyway, it has a really nice texture to it. I'm going to use these pens as I think the flow of the bounce of the line will be better than before. So I've tried 3 different black lines: enamel, permanent marker pen and a marker pen. I personally like the jagged texture to the marker pen. I think it adds a really nice contrast to the slick designs which are on the plates. Which black line do you like the most? Let me know in the comments. Maybe I should go back to painting in enamel. What my plan is to put these plates up online for people to buy. I've enjoyed this project and it's been interesting to see how it's developed. I've been thinking about doing this project for a while and wasn't quite sure how it was going to work, but it's all come together well and I hope to continue sourcing old plates and painting on them. Thanks for watching.